and then got sponsored. They didn't have a sponsorship license, but they got one and got me sponsored into the Tier 2 skilled worker visa in 2017. And then after that, I applied for the Global Talent Visa in 2020. And I received a reply within 5 days. And that was just amazing because I know that there were so many benefits that come with this visa. And we're going to talk about this today. And then in 2022, I then applied for my ILR. And last year, I applied for my British citizenship. And my background is in product management. I've been doing that for the last 7-ish years. So I have a good knowledge of the technology scene. I'm very active in the technology scene in the UK as well. Just a quick disclaimer before we jump right in. So this session is basically to provide information about the Global Talent Visa and any tips and insights into how you can have a successful application, as well as answer some of your questions. I am not an immigration lawyer and I won't be able to give you legal advice, unfortunately. So if there's anything immigration related, I think a legal representative or a lawyer would be able to provide a more accurate answer for you. But I'll try to the best of my knowledge to answer all your questions. So I'm going to move forward now. So let's talk a bit about the UK Global Talent Visa. So this was formerly known as the Tier 1 Exceptional Talent Visa. And it's a visa designated to individuals who are seen as talented or have promising talent in the digital technology space or even arts for those who are not within technology. And it offers a pathway to settlement. So as you can see from my story, you can apply for indefinite leave to remain in the UK. And then a year after, I was able to apply for British citizenship. The good thing about this visa is that you don't need a job. It's not tied to a job, so you can live and work in the UK freely without really having to be tied to a sponsored job. Some of the benefits outside of the career independence and also the route to citizenship, you can also be self-employed, or you can also work for a company. So you can be a freelancer, a contractor, you can work for yourself, an entrepreneur. It's really up to you. As long as you're contributing to the UK economy, that's fine. And then one of the most important things as well is if you have dependents, so kids, partners, you can also bring them and apply at the same time, or they can join you later. All right. So we're talking about the technician routes in this session, and this is specifically for individuals who are in the digital technology space. There are other endorsing bodies that exist. So if, for example, if you're more on the creative side, there's the Arts Council, that's the endorsing body for that, and there are other routes as well to get the Global Talent Visa. So today's presentation is just for the tech route. Quick stats about the visa. So in the last 10 years, there's been about 5,000 tech workers who have moved to the UK under the visa. And the endorsement rate is about 54%. So it's 50% chance of getting approved for this visa, which highlights how important it is for you to have the right resources and the right materials to be able to apply for this visa. And some of the top locations that UK Global Talent have come from include Europe, Africa, India, North America, China, and Australia. And I also read somewhere that some Nigerians are here. Nigerians are among the top 10 countries that have gotten this visa, which is amazing. So let's talk about the technician route. So the technician route is for tech roles. So if you're, for example, a software developer, a data scientist, product manager, a cybersecurity, AI expert, anything technical, but also non-technical would basically be eligible for this route. We'll talk about that in a bit. You can either apply for an exceptional talent or an exceptional promise, which means that either you have 5 years of experience and below, that would be promise, or if you have 5 years of experience and above, that would be talent. To get that visa, you need to be endorsed by TechNation, and you can apply within or outside the UK. And also you can apply as a student, professional, or an entrepreneur. In terms of the differences between promise and talent, I'm just going to quickly run through this. Exceptional promise is an individual who has a potential to be a leader in the digital technology space. So they're an emerging or potential leader. They have less than 5 years of experience in technology, but you could have had longer, work experience, but just outside of technology. But within technology, you have less than 5 years. You could be at the early stage of your career or a student. You also have to be able to prove that you have the potential to be a leader through your skills and the impact you've had. So this is ideal for junior roles or students or recent graduates. And then for exceptional talent, you're seen as a leader in the technology field. So you have more than 5 years of experience in technology. You're maybe at the later stage of a career. You're recognized as a leading talent in the technology space. And maybe you hold titles like senior leaders, senior execs, C-suite, so CTO, CEO. The good thing is that Technician will assess based on your application where you fit in, and they can decide to give you talent or promise. So I've worked with people who initially applied for promise and then they got the talent visa instead, because maybe your evidence shows that you have that leadership skills that they're looking for. In terms of typical applicants, I've categorized it based on 4 typical applicants. So you could be a technical applicant from a non-technical organization. So for example, if you're a software developer, a data scientist, cybersecurity specialist, you would fall under technical applicant. So you should be able to prove that you have successfully applied your technical skills in the technology space. So for example, if you've built software, if you've managed cloud infrastructure or platforms, you would be seen as a technical applicant, and you can show that in your application. For non-technical applicants, you have to be working in a technical organization. So for example, product managers or growth hackers or marketers, even if you're a UX or UI designer, you will be seen as a non-technical applicant. And you should be able to show how your skills in, for example, product development or business strategy has contributed to the technology field. Now, the caveat is, if you are non-technical from a non-technical organization, then you are not eligible. So let me define that for you. So for example, if you are a HR specialist that works for, let's say, a manufacturing company, then Technician wouldn't really see you as a technical, you wouldn't really be eligible for their criteria. So they've defined they want people who have worked in a product-led technology company. So meaning that your company maybe rallies its business operations around the product. So you guys sell and make revenue through a product, for example. That would be ideal for Technician. Then we have entrepreneurs. Maybe you've started your own company. You should be able to show innovation through your entrepreneurship and through your evidence as well. And then we have students. So if you're a student, you can also apply for the visa. But the exception is that if you're an undergraduate student or master's student, you can only apply after you've completed your course, which means that the CAS, for those that already are in the UK, you get a certificate of acceptance, which basically shows that you have basically come into the UK to study. So your CAS end date should have passed for you to be eligible. And then if you're a master's student or a PhD student, sorry, you should have completed at least 24 months of your current PhD studies to be eligible. And then I think that's it. And you also have to be above 18 years old, but I assume most people would be based on the criteria anyway. Quickly, the typical technical and non-technical skills that Technician want. This is all on their website, so you can have a look at it. We've already talked about some of the technical skills, so DevOps, cloud, AI, those are what, if you work in those fields, that's what they class as technical. And then business skills, for example, if you're an senior investment manager or analyst, if you're a product manager, those would be business skills. I've put this here to just highlight that the list that they have online is non-exhaustive, meaning that you could fall under a title that isn't really represented here. So don't feel like you don't fit into that criteria. So if you have a title that maybe relates to I don't know, DevOps engineer, then use that. So choose whatever is relevant to you when you're applying. They've also stated that if you work for companies like consultancies or in service delivery, you wouldn't be eligible. And that's because, as I mentioned earlier, TechNation wants people in roles that are actually creating or innovating digital products. If you are implementing or maintaining or servicing a product, they don't, an existing technology, they don't really see that as eligible. But again, it might be sometimes case by case. If you're able to show your evidence correctly, maybe you can build a story around that. But usually they wouldn't really accept people who work in those roles. They would rather you apply through the skilled worker visa, for example. Junior investors, analysts, they're generally not eligible because based on TechNation's criteria, you need to have led an investment of over £25 million to be eligible. So if you're like an entry level investment analyst, you wouldn't really be eligible because you wouldn't manage that much investment funds. So that's why they don't really agree for those roles. So let's move on. I'm just cautious of time. In terms of the endorsement process, so there are two stages. Stage one is you register and pay on the Home Office website. So you pay about £524. Once you've made that payment, you can then upload your documents on the TechNation portal. The stage one process takes about 8 weeks to process. However, there's cases where they have fast-tracked the application, so you can get a decision in 3 weeks. An example of such cases is if, for example, if you have been accepted to an accelerator or incubator program in the UK, then you'll be fast-tracked. Or if you're in high demand roles, sometimes, for example, AI, cybersecurity, they could fast-track your application. Stage two is the visa application process. So that's when you've gotten endorsed by TechNation. You can now take that endorsement and apply for the visa. So you pay a fee of about £192, and then you have to pay a health surcharge fee, which is at a standard rate of £1,035 per year. So that's a lot of investment. So if you are, for example, going for the 5-year route, then you have to pay for the 5 years. So that's £1,035 per year. If you're going for the talent, means that you're eligible for the talent, then you can pay 3 years of the fee. Students get it at a discounted rate of £776 per year. And then children, if you're under 18, will also pay £776 per year. The stage two, you have to apply within 3 months of getting the endorsement, and it usually takes about 3 weeks or so if you're inside the UK, and about 8 weeks if you're outside the UK. So that's an overview of the endorsement process. If you don't qualify for stage one, you can appeal. However, the appeal process doesn't allow you to upload more evidence. So you have to use whatever evidence you used initially for your application. So it's really important that you are ready before you apply. You can decide to reapply if you don't want to appeal, which then means you have to start the process all over again. Let's get on to documents. So for you to be eligible, you have to show evidence. You can upload up to 10 documents so they have a mandatory and an optional criteria. So you can upload up to 15 documents in total, 10 documents to support the mandatory or optional criteria, and then 3 letters of recommendation, personal statement, and your CV. And they have specific guidelines on what they want. So it has to be maximum 3 sides of A4, correct labeling, and it has to be typed, so you can't handwrite it. So that's basically that with documents. There's a lot more, but I've just left it quite high level for this presentation. So we're rounding up. I would say my top tips for the application process is being eligible is different to you actually satisfying the criteria. And what I mean here is that you could be in the UK for 5 years or more. Oh, sorry, not being in the UK. You could be in the technology space for 5 years or more. But if you're not able to share evidence of that and what impact you've had, unfortunately, you wouldn't meet the criteria. So even though, yeah, you have 5 years of work experience in technology, if you're not able to prove that and prove any sort of impact, then unfortunately, Technation might likely not accept your application. Second tip is focus on strong, clear evidence. This is your chance to self-promote. Make sure that you sell yourself, your skills, and all that you've done in the technology field. Choose the right referees for recommendation letters. That's super key because they need to be able to vouch for your work in the technology field. Keep the documents well organized and make sure you title them well and label them properly. And don't assume that the assessors will click on all the links and all the screenshots you put on there. So make sure that you're very selective of what types of documents you provide. Highlight your industry impact and leadership. And then before you submit, make sure you triple check your submission. I was also going to highlight that if you're in doubt of whether you fit into talent or promise, you can go for promise. Sometimes if they assess you, they could end up giving you talent instead. But I would advise don't go for talent because it's shorter and because you pay less technically for the health surcharge. But just focus on where you think you fit properly. So don't apply because one is cheaper or one is faster, because you might end up getting a rejection if you don't meet the criteria. And I think that's it. So we're quickly going to go through the Q&As that people sent through, but let me look at the chats just to see if there's anything here. Feel free to drop in any questions that you guys have and we can go through them after the Q&A that I'm going to go through now. But I hope everyone's following and I hope that you're finding it useful. Give me a thumbs up if you're still engaged. Yeah, amazing. Someone raised their hands. 1 second. Was that a mistake? Oh, okay, I think it was a mistake. Okay. Oh, yeah. Shulamite, do you want to ask a question?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for all the knowledge you've shared, though I joined a little bit late. But thank you so much for all I've gained here so far. So the quick question I want to ask is, I don't know if you've mentioned this earlier before I joined, but what if you maybe have led a community before, an NGO, and maybe at some point you have to post things currently happening in the NGO and you are currently building a product, does that also make you eligible or show that you've actually at some point made impact in the tech industry?
Okay. I would need to unpack that. So you worked at an NGO. Were you what's the title of?
No, I founded an NGO
Okay.
that ran for 4 years plus. Though currently, I just had to pause some things because I want to restructure and remodel things. So this year we're not going to actually run. Maybe from next year, not sure yet. But currently, I'm building a product, and I don't know if I should start applying today. Does that also count as actually I've made an impact?
The NGO, was that within technology?
Yes, yes. We actually train women with tech skills and help them get job placement.
Okay.
And we started out October 3rd, 2019.
Okay. And do you have a product that you offer to people to help them train, or is this through like workshops? Like how I mean, maybe we can chat later. But I would like, there's a lot more questions I would like to understand before I'm able to answer that. But I would say that if you're building a product after now, if you're focusing on that, then I think that's a stronger case than the NGO, unless if the NGO has some sort of product that you're offering. So like I mentioned, Technation wants situations where you're working for a product-led company or you've actually developed a digital product. So that builds a stronger story for you. Let me just go through the Q&As that we have, and then we'll open up the floor for more questions. I can see all the questions coming through. Thanks for sending all of these. So someone asked, what are the most important factors Technation considers when reviewing applications? So I would say there are 3 key areas that Technation would look at. So one is your proven leadership or potential leadership. So if your talent or promise. So applicants must be able to demonstrate that they either have an established leadership focus in technology, or they have an emerging sort of leadership background. So maybe you have 3 years of experience, or you've been doing really good and doing amazing things in the technology space, then Technation would want to see that. The second thing is significant impact in digital technology. So for example, your work should have tangible outcomes. So you should be able to quantify some of the work that you have done. So if it's creating tech products, scaling companies, publishing research, leading AI advancements, all of that would really help. Those are the things that Technation would want to see. Strong, well-structured evidence. So you should have supporting documents and evidences to prove all the work that you have done. So that's through your recommendation letters, through reports, awards that you've gotten, places that you've spoken at, to really show that you have been able to do all the things that you say you've done. So my tip for, having to, what's most important is don't just list your achievements, but you should be able to support them as well with your documentation. So that's something to note when you're going for your application. How can I make my personal statement stand out? So your personal statement is your chance to tell a very compelling story. It's your chance to basically highlight why you are exceptional and why you should be part of the digital technology sector in the UK. So I would say the first thing is to have a very strong opening in your personal statement. So you should be able to highlight what makes you great and what your passions are at the beginning of your personal statement. Imagine that the assessor has 8 seconds to review. I'm not saying that, but imagine that they do. Then you should be able to catch them very early on and keep them interested. So it's really storytelling. So being able to tell that story with a strong hook or statement, early statement would be great. And then clearly define what you've done in the last 5 years, or if you're doing promise in the last 3 years or whatever that might be. Then also being able to explain why you should be in the UK and what your skills would be and how you'd impact the UK technology is also important. The key thing is Technation has their own criteria. So for example, they want you maximum to have 1,000 words. I would say stick to that criteria. Try to use that personal statement to support all the evidences that you are providing in your application as well. Then someone asked, what kind of work experience is required for the Global Talent Visa? I think we've already touched on that. So you either fall in a technical applicant role or non-technical. So I would say try to identify where you fit in and then look at the types of skills that they require. So for example, if you're technical, you would need to be in software development or data science or something like that. If you're non-technical, maybe product management, UX, UI design, and so on and so forth. Then try to understand if you would fall under promise or talent as well, or if you're an entrepreneur or a student. So those are things that you need to look out for. How do I secure strong recommendation letters? Who should write them? That's a good one. Recommendation letters, I think the best way to find referees would be through your network. So I would advise, when I started, I looked through my LinkedIn and tried to identify at least 5 people that I know that are credible in the industry. They know that the work I've done, and also they're able to vouch for the work that I have done. So these are CEOs, CTOs, founders, or senior executives that know you and know your work. Even your professors, you can ask them for recommendation letters. So for example, my 3 referees were the CEO of a company, a VC investor that's very known in the fintech space, and then there was also someone from my university who was leading employment relations. So they were able to like show what I've done through volunteering and things like that. So that was another recommendation letter I got. Like I mentioned, what should be in the letter, they should be able to vouch and show examples of how you've shown leadership and innovation impact in the technology field. I would advise not to write your own recommendation letters because it's just avoid doing that. There are templates that you can use to help you structure it, but just make sure that you find people that can actually write and basically recommend you for the visa. What are the biggest mistakes that lead to rejections? So the first one is weak evidence or unstructured evidence. So if you're going for the application, try to link all your evidence to the right criteria. That's one thing. And also don't feel like because you have stronger evidence for mandatory and you don't have strong ones for the optional criteria, that will be fine. No, technician will assess it, and both mandatory and optional, even though they call it optional, I don't know why they do that, but they would assess both and then look at it holistically. So it's not going to be, oh, because you passed mandatory, then you get the visa. No, they'll look at everything. So make sure that you structure your evidences in the right criteria. Second is low impact. So if, for example, you've worked at a company, but you haven't really driven any like strong impact in that company or in the technology field, that wouldn't create a strong case for you. So I would say try to focus on the highest impacts, things that you've done that have maybe increased users or increased revenue or raised investment for a digital company. Those are good things or examples that you can have. Recommendation letters, not having right recommendation letters or strong ones. So I've seen people use letters from colleagues or their classmates and things like that. That's not strong enough. You need someone who is recognized in the industry, both nationally and internationally, so they can provide you with the right references. Also, ignoring technicians' guidelines. If technician says they want 3 pages per evidence, make sure you stick to it. They can be quite strict about that. How long does the endorsement process usually take? So we talked about this. This is typically 8 weeks. However, you can be fast-tracked and you can get a decision in 3 weeks. So it just depends. Is there a way to increase my chances of getting endorsement? Like we've mentioned, I think the key things are have a strong application, have good recommendation letters, be able to show the right evidence, have a good CV, have a good personal statement, align your application to what technician wants. So those are the things that will help you to increase your chances. There's a question here. What are my next steps after getting the global talent visa? I'm not sure what this person is asking, but I think my assumption is, what happens after you've gotten the visa. So I would say the next step is ILR. So your indefinite leave to remain. So immediately I got my visa, I started to prepare for the ILR. So once you get the visa, it'll be good to find work or start up something to show that you're continuing to impact in the UK, because you would need to show that as well when you apply for ILR. So they'll want to see, are you working at the moment, and things like that. How can I transition from a skilled worker visa to a global talent visa? So I can only talk based on my own experience. there isn't really anything major that you need to do. Home Office just updates that you've moved from a skilled worker to a global talent visa. Obviously, inform your employer of that move and that change so that they can update their systems. But other than that, like, there's nothing major that I had to do to transition. If you're trying to essentially prepare for the application while you're still on the skilled worker visa, then I would say give yourself enough time to gather the evidence and make sure that you're prepared. And then once you've done that, you have the evidence, you have the recommendation letters, then you can apply for the global talent visa. So if that's what this person is referring to. So just make sure that in between you switching visas, you have enough time to actually apply, and even enough time to appeal in case you need more time. Okay, I think that is it for the questions that were sent in. I know that you guys have sent loads of questions in the chat, so let me have a look. Okay, let me scroll up. Someone asked, what is the difference between Promise Visa and Talent Visa? Victor, I hope I've answered that, but if you want me to go through that again, just give me a shout. So Promise is if you have less than 5 years of work experience in technology, and then Talent is if you have more than 5 and you're able to show leadership. Whereas Promise, maybe you might be at the start of your career, so you don't have a lot of experience. What are the required documents one needs to present? So there's a list of documents that you need to provide to Technation. So it depends on what the mandatory criteria is that you have to show leadership in the technology field. So you need to show anything that really proves that you're a leader. So this could be maybe if you've led certain investment rounds at a company, then that would help to show your leadership skills. It could also be reference letters from leading experts in the technology space. If you've been featured in newsletters or media publications, that's also a way to show leadership. You can also maybe show leadership through your employment contract. So sometimes, based on your salary, Technation can see you as a leader if you have a high salary. So that's another way that you can show. And high salary is very subjective. So it just depends on where you are. If you're outside the UK or inside the UK, you should be able to assess, for example, the market standard and see what is defined as high in your location, basically. And then they have the optional criteria, which you can choose to. So you can choose between innovation, recognition of work beyond your day-to-day job. And then if you've had significant contributions as a founder or as a senior executive of a product-led digital company. So you can show evidences there. Some of the examples of documents you can show, for example, for innovation are if you have any patents, any prototypes, any strategy documents, you can show that as an example. And then for recognition of your work outside of your immediate occupation, you can show awards, any volunteering that you've done, letters of support from people that you've worked with during volunteering, or any like speaking engagements as well. And then for the third criteria, which is significant technical, commercial, or entrepreneurial contributions in a product-led organization, you can show letters of support again. You can show financial reports, any fundraising that you've done, any metrics that show revenue or user growth, or you helping the company gain more market share, for example. You can show that. Again, there's a lot of evidence and documents that you can provide. That's something that I can also help guide you through. How does Kemi's Wahala affect applicants? Anthony, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I understand what this means, but feel free to clarify. Uche Nwafo, thanks for the presentation. Must your references must all your references be tech founders, and must these tech founders, I'm guessing, who have raised funds? Can one use C-level employee in a big tech product-led company as a referee? So they don't all have to be tech founders. They have to be recognized in the industry, or be doing. They could be CEOs. So one of your referees could be a CEO. Someone else could be, like I mentioned, I got a reference from someone who was an investor in fintech. You can use that. You can also use, I don't know, people who are C-level or senior executives in companies. You can definitely use big tech if they can vouch for the work that you have done. So that's the key thing. It can't just be just random people. It has to be people who have seen you do work and able to like talk about the work that you've done and the impact that you've shown. So I can see there is a student route under technician. Yeah, so the students can apply for technician, but you definitely have to meet the criteria, which is you still have to show leadership. So how have you shown leadership in technology? Have you volunteered for societies? Have you spoken at events? Have you led hackathons? Things like that. You definitely need to still meet the criteria, even though you're a student, but that they would probably assess you as a talent, a promise, sorry, rather than a talent. So it's the same process. You have to meet all the criteria, but I guess you just have to be able to tailor it to meet the student criteria, meaning that the promise criteria. So, but it's still the same route as anyone else. Can you show an example of how to arrange criteria documents? Yes. Do we just say that we've done our attached evidences as screenshots or links? Do we have to tell a story while listing the criteria or evidence? So I don't have an example right now, but when you are drafting your evidence, you definitely want to still align it with the story. So you should be able to describe what the evidence is, because don't assume that the assessor knows what you're talking about. So you can't just put screenshots there. You have to be able to explain, okay, this is a document or a report showing how I've contributed to financial growth by 50% by doing this. And then to support that, you can have recommendation letters as well, or letters of support to say you also did that. But you need to be able to describe what the evidence is and help the assessor. Just make it easy for them to be able to understand what you're talking about. So definitely have a brief paragraph. Also just title the documents as well. The actual PDF, for example, write a title and describe what it is, and then link it to a paragraph as well. So that's how I would advise you to do that. And I have an example actually that I basically share if you are going through the consultation, but it's basically, you should have a description like this. So this evidence demonstrates my role as a senior product manager in leading a team of 5 engineers to launch an AI-based fraud detection system between January 2023 to December 2024, describing that I've increased growth by 40%. Then you refer that to your evidence if you have more evidence somewhere else. So this is an example of how I would structure it, or you should structure it as well. Let's see what else. There's a lot of questions, guys. I'm trying to go through them. How do I transition from student visa to a global talent visa? So the key thing, as I mentioned, is as a student, you still have to meet the technician criteria. So you also have to have completed your course. So I'm assuming maybe you're in your BSc or your MSc course. You have to have completed that course first of all to be able to apply. So some universities offer you like a period in between to be able to find work or do something. So I would say use that time to try to figure out how to apply for the Global Talent Visa. But you still have to meet the criteria, meaning that during your time at university, you should have been very active in clubs, societies, you should have been building that evidence prior, so that by the time you get to apply for the Global Talent Visa, you have the materials and evidence that you need. So I would say that's the best strategy. Have enough time to be able to gather all your evidence if you're a student. Okay, I'm going to take some people have their hands raised. Dele.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for the knowledge sharing, very impactful. I don't know whether you even mentioned about kind of keep my mind because I'm currently working as well, so doing two things at the same time. You did mention about promise and the talent part, so I was wondering, this part wasn't clear if you had mentioned earlier, sorry about that.
No,
If I apply for the talent and probably, okay, say if I apply for the talent and the supporting document were not good enough, could there be an option of then approving me for promise if the document supports the promise? Rather than rejecting totally. Yeah.
Rather than, okay, so the tricky thing is if you've gone for talent, it depends. I think if your evidence points towards more of a promise, they might be able to approve you for promise instead. But if you have more than 5 years of experience, for example, then you wouldn't really fall under the criteria for promise. So they might be strict and still reject it. So I think it depends on the entire story you're trying to tell. So if you're more than 5 years, then they would probably assess you as a talent instead of really promise anyway. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, but there's that possibility. Okay. The second one, sorry, that is so you did mention the kind of the areas and the roles, or I'm sure mine should be among. I'm a business analyst, but that wasn't mentioned in your options at all. So I just want to know if that's an option, because I'm a business analyst with a couple of about more than 5 years. I work with local authority. I have driven innovation, digitalization of processes to drive efficiency. Is it possible to use the work done within the local authority as a reference? And can I get references from my tech colleagues as well in the local authority, or it has to be outside the local authority?
So in terms of reference letters, I would say try to diversify it. So not just people within your company. And if they're colleagues, are these really senior executives or are people around your level? So it depends. So ideally, you want to get senior people to provide you with a reference.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So senior people look at people outside of your work as well, people in the technology space that can also give you references. I would say as much as possible, diversify your references.
So invariably look outside your work environment.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because think of the visa as it's not linked just to your work, it's linked to you. How have you as a person driven impact and innovation in technology? So that's what they want to see. So yeah.
All right, thank you.
No worries. Uchenna.
Hi, Rikia. Good evening. Good
Hello.
evening, everyone.
Evening.
Yes, please. Thank you very much for the session. I just want to ask. So when you submit an evidence, like for instance, an online publication or a high impact speaking engagement that you did like 3 or 5 months before you actually submit your application. I think I saw somewhere in the website that evidences that are get towards you applying, like does it really affect if this evidence was done like 3 months before you submit your application or 2 years before you submit your application? You understand my question?
Yeah, I do. So technician wants to see sustained impact, so not just a one-off presentation. So even if it's from 5 months ago, I think that's okay, but you need to show that you've been continuously doing things in the last 5 years, if that makes sense. It can't be just one presentation. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah. So if it's just one, if it's if the evidence you want to submit is like a presentation, a speaking engagement.
Mhm.
And then the last one was like 3 months ago. As long as you have another one that was 1 year ago or 2 years ago, you're fine.
Yeah, you need to have a couple. I think you need to have a couple continuously over the couple of years. So it could be 3 in a year or 2 previously, but you need to really show that you have continuously like been in that space and speaking and getting awards or speaking at engagements. So you need to show that sustained impact, basically.
Okay, not something you just did once in a year
Yeah,
or once in
yeah.
2 years.
Yeah, you need to really be active.
Interesting. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it just builds a stronger case, because if they see 1 or 2 from the last 3 to 6 months, they will be suspicious and thinking that, okay, are you just doing this for the visa? So they need to see that you've been really contributing to the technology space for a continuous period of time. Annie for Washe. Sorry, I've just butchered your name.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, I understand. So yeah, I clearly understand the difference, between the promise and the the other one. But my question is, and this is just me using myself as an example. So I started research. I do research for about 9 years now. And research is more of consulting. Data. Though my research also cuts across UX research. Product research, where I do research for, take for example, the likes of Google, Twitter and the rest. However, that is actually consulting, not product led, as you mentioned. However, I pivoted into product management about 3 years ago, yeah. And from that 3 years, that's what I've been doing. And however, as a product manager, you need research also, just using that, my past experience, to also just get deeper into product management. So looking at that, so what my question right now is, would that then fall under promise? Looking at the fact that product management started 3 years ago, and that's what I've been doing from then till now.
Yes, I think your best bet is to go for promise, because even though you've been doing research for tech companies and all that, again, they might be more strict and look at just your last 3 years of product management experience. So I would say your safe bet might be to go for the promise. It gives you a chance to really tell your story better. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Isaac?
Yeah, thanks.
Hello.
Thanks, Rakia. Yeah, so my question is just a follow-up on Delhi's question as well. I think it was regarding working in the local council as a business analyst. However, he's involved in some technical stuff as a business analyst. I think I pretty much didn't get clarification with regards to the role and it being in local council. The answer was rather on the references.
Yeah.
So you please, provide more clarity on that, because I work as a business analyst as well. Not a technology company. Yeah, so I just want to know how that will play out. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So would you say that the local council is a product-led organization? Meaning that, do you work on certain products, or is it more just like a service that you work on?
I think generally what business analysts do is, they are sort of a liaison between the technical teams and the business itself, business stakeholders. And so most often, we find ourselves communicating with IT guys who are developing the actual product or website or whatever. And so that's where we have that technical exposure. But, taking the business analyst role itself and it being in let's say you work as a business analyst in the NHS, you have some, exposure with the IT guys, and maybe the projects you guys are working on are technical projects. But can you just stand on that? Because I'm just being careful about being a business analyst in, let's say, Google or Microsoft, and being a business analyst in NHS.
Yeah.
Find that clarification. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a tricky one, because, for example, the NHS, they have, for example, the NHS app. So if you're a business analyst helping to, gather information or analyze data for like an app within NHS, then you could try to frame it as product led. But NHS as an organization is not a product-led organization. So it really depends on how you frame your evidences and if you can show direct impact that you've been working on sort of digital products rather than just the organization itself. So yeah, I would have to like try to understand what the evidence is that you have and what sorts of projects they are.
Okay. Just another follow-up question. In terms of the years of experience in that particular role, when you're going for the promise, is minimum of 2 years. Is that correct?
Promise is if you have 5 years or less of work experience. Yeah.
Oh, five or less. Okay. Yeah. The talent is more.
More. Yeah.
More.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
No worries. We've run out of time, and I know there's still a lot of questions, but I just want us to, I'll be able to answer your questions if you just send them through to the Product Dive team, and we can follow up with an email or so to answer your questions. But just before you jump off, so I am offering a consulting service through Product Dive, and we currently have 3 packages which would help you to apply for the technician visa. The first package is the essential guidance, which is basically a one-to-one eligibility assessment report that you get after you filled out a questionnaire. You also get a checklist which outlines all the documents that you need to apply for, how to format them, and what examples that you can provide. And then there'll also be a masterclass to guide you through the step-by-step process of application. And then you also have a post masterclass Q&A to answer any questions that you might have. The second package is a combination of the first package, but then you also get all the templates that you need. So you get the personal statement template, the CV, the recommendation letter template. You also get a review of all your documents and feedback on how to improve them. And you get a second review as well after you've incorporated the feedback that I've provided. And then you also get a 30-minute Q&A call just to go through everything, any questions that you might have. And then the final package is everything in package 1 and 2, including the application guidance. So walk you through the application process and make sure that you're filling in the right information in the forms and submitting the right information, as well as any ongoing support and addressing any questions that you might have. Even if there's any follow-up from home office as well, you can basically have me at your service to help you. If you're interested in that, please do scan this QR code, which will show you more information about the service, and you can also sign up online. For those who still have questions, sorry that we couldn't go through them, but we will record all the questions and try to follow up via email. Once you've scanned the QR code, you should be able to select Rakia and then click on whatever package that you want to apply for, and then we can take it from there. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining. It's been really great answering some of your questions. I hope this has been informative, and hopefully we can share the recording as well. But yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Rakia. That was really good. Bye for now. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye.